What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the program. I hope you all have had a nice Veterans Day weekend. And we're now 1 week after the election. And so it is a good time that we're getting the final tallies to have a forensic look at this Donald Trump victory and to better understand what happened during this election. So let's move on right away. And here is the final Atlas Intel map based on the polls that they did during the last week before the election. And as you can see, they had predicted 312 for the Republicans, 226 for the Democrats. And so if you were subscribed to the channel, and if you're not, you should hit that subscribe button. And the result that they had predicted turned out to a T Atlas Intel, who was the best pollster in 2020, being again the best pollster in 2024, getting the exact number of electoral college votes for this election. As you can see, the results now in Donald Trump 312 to 226. So, congrats to Atlas Intel doing a fantastic work. And for the next election, remember them, Atlas Intel, being very, very good, over this election and the previous one. They're doing fantastic work. And so if you were either subscribed to the channel or if you were looking out for Atlas Intel, this election came as no surprise to you. But if you were living in the bubble of lies of the mainstream media, then you were totally blindsided by the result of this election. And many, many people, it seems, were blindsided. They did not understand how it was possible to see a landslide victory here for Donald Trump when the mainstream media had told them repeatedly and as close to the election as the day before that Kamala Harris was leading this election. She had it in the bag. It was going to be close, but she was going to pull through. And of course, none of that was real. None of that was true. The mainstream media, of course, they had the same information as everybody. They knew that this wasn't the case, but the reason why they pushed this narrative was, as we had, mentioned several times during the campaign, not as much as them believing that Kamala Harris was going to win, but their goal was to limit down ballot damage for Democrats in the Senate and the House races. The same reason why they took Joe Biden out of the top of the ticket and replaced him with Kamala Harris. It was to really make life easier for those Senate and House races. And so if you were tuned into the mainstream media, well, you thought that Kamala Harris was probably going to win, and that if at least it was going to be very, very close. And the reason they did that, of course, is they wanted to not demoralize the Democratic voting base. They wanted people to go out there and vote to improve the chances of the races in the Senate and the House. And in many ways, the mainstream media in this operation and the Democrats were successful. And the reason I'm saying that, let's have a look here at the Senate results. The Republicans getting 53 in the Senate against 47 for the Democrats. So, of course, the Republicans get the majority needed to pass bills, but they don't get the 60 seats needed to avoid the filibuster rule in the Senate. So with that, conserving enough seats, the Democrats still managed to get some leverage in the Senate. The Republicans are not going to be able to pass through all the bills that they want. They are going to need at least 7 Democrats to enable them to circumvent the filibuster rule. And that means that they're going to have to compromise to a certain extent and to get at least some Democrats on their side to be able to pass bills through the Senate. Now, I have no doubt that in the next 2 years, we're going to see the Democrats filibuster every single bill that the Republicans tried to pass in the Senate. But I guess that's the way politics goes. Let's have a look now at the House races. The House still not called here on Fox News. Other people, other news outlets have called this race already, but very, very close. Even here on Fox News, 216 is for the Republicans. 2 more seats needed to get a majority in the House. It is very likely now that they are going to get this majority and completing the Republican sweep in this election, getting the presidency, the Senate, and the House. And it means that the Republicans are going to be able to move forward with their agenda, at least, in a way that is going to enable them to do the reforms that they promised during the campaign. So now that we've looked here at the results, let's move a little bit into this forensic analysis. Let's look in details at what happened and who really moved the needle in this election compared to the previous election. Here is, before we do that, Liz McDonald here talking about the rating, the Nielsen ratings for MSNBC since between the end of October here and last Friday. As you can see, MSNBC going down big. And of course, you would expect this in part because, the coverage before the election is going to get a lot of people tuning in. But when you see things like Stephanie Rule here down 67% in just 1 week, perhaps a lot of the people who were tuning into MSNBC and were being told day after day that Kamala Harris had this election in the bag are perhaps questioning how accurate is the information they're getting from MSNBC. And, I wouldn't blame them, of course, if people were telling me, news organizations were telling me things that don't turn out to be true, then I would really question them also. But let's have a look here at this Financial Times exit poll data showing us a little bit what has happened here. And one of the interesting graphs that they had here in this article, of course, as you can see, they're showing here state by state. As you can see, all the states except Washington, and that's it. Every single state moving towards the red side from the 2020 election. So 49 states here moving towards the Republican side. Not a good look here for the Democrats. If you look at it, I believe this is by counties, I think. It moves in the Republican direction also all over the map. But the most interesting graph of all here is this one. And we're going to spend a little bit of time here looking at this one. So this graph shows the change between 2020 and 2024 by demographic group, the shift either from the Democratic side to the Republican or the other way around from the Republican side to the Democratic side. And as you can see here already with a quick overlook, the majority of demographics in this country moving towards the Republican side, only two demographic subgroup moving towards the Democrat side. It's people over 65 and white college-educated women. Every single other demographic group moving towards the Republican. And the most important, of course, the bigger the arrow, the more significant the shift is. And as you can see here, the biggest shift is coming from Hispanics and Asians, also Black Americans, and people fairly young, from 18 to 29 and 30 to 44. So basically, the narrative here of this election and of the demographic shift is if you were a minority, then you moved to the Republican side big time. If you were between 18 and 44, you moved to the Republican side big time. If you were a white college-educated woman or someone over 65, you moved a little bit to the Democratic side. And of course, at the intersection of that, if you are someone who is versed in intersectionality, then you will know that white college-educated women over the age of 65 will represent the biggest shift toward the Democratic side. Otherwise, for the rest, there's a little bit of shift. Everybody's shifting to the right a little bit, but not as significant. And so if you want to understand really what happened in this election and who shifted this election compared to the previous election in the favor of the Republicans and Donald Trump, well, you can see it here. It's really minorities between the age of 18 and 44 who moved this election and elected Donald Trump. Let's have a look here at this next graph, still from FT. And there's a couple of them that are interesting here. This one shows you that the richer you are, the more you shifted towards the Democrats. And this one shows you even better the shift here. And as you can see, if you were making under 50,000, then you moved 11 points towards the Republican. But if you were making over 100,000, then the shift was towards is almost more than 15%. I don't know. We don't get here the number, but more than 50%, 15%. To the Democratic side. So it goes a little bit in hand with the previous graph that we were showing. If you were a minority, if you were young, you were making under $100,000 a year, you have moved towards the Republican side. And on the contrary, if you're a white college-educated woman over the age of 65 and making over $100,000, you have been moving big time toward the Democrats. And this really it shows a new dynamic in elections, something that we haven't seen before. And we're going to go to the next one. And that's one of my tweets here the day after the election. And I said, if the Democrats don't return to serving the working and middle classes and double down on woke identity politics that only appeals to white upper-class college-educated women, they will continue to erode their support base and spend the next decade watching Republicans govern. And this exit poll data from the Financial Times really shows that the Democrats try to sell themselves as the party of the working class, that they were there for the little guy, and that the Republicans and Donald Trump and all these billionaires were going to give tax breaks to the wealthy, and it was going to hurt working class people. And this message did not register at all with the voters. And, it was really hypocritical for the Democrats to sort of point that out, saying Donald Trump and his Republican billionaires, when actually over 80 billionaires had endorsed Kamala Harris. Of course, every single Hollywood celebrity, multi-millionaire endorsed Kamala Harris. And the policies of the Democratic Party under the leadership of Joe Biden, of course, had really been, aimed toward really the demographic that ended up voting for Kamala Harris. And one of the things, I think is important to remember, and let's go back here to this graph while we talk about this. when all the narrative about these elections is sort of put to the side, because it is mostly BS. It's about, oh, who's the most moral, who's the best person, and all that is really relative, and it's really insignificant when you compare it to really what the goal of government is. And what government does is it marshals resources through taxes, and then it spends these resources, it spends that money, and where it spends it, and on who it spends it, and who gains by the money that is spent. That is the reality of politics. And so the Democrats, they had constructed this coalition around white women, and created the coalition with minorities. And the pretense was that it was a coalition under Joe Biden that was going to be fair and move forward the needle, so to speak, towards minorities and make their lives better. And what it ended up being was exactly the contrary. And we saw it during the Biden administration. The spending that they had done, they wanted to spend 1.3 trillion on forgiving college student loans. And of course, once again, this college student loans, we know that the majority now of the demographics in college is a white woman. And in a way, it was spending or buying votes, you could say, for Joe Biden. Another big spending item was, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which was really a green infrastructure spending bill. Again, one of the concerns that registers very well for white college-educated women. And so in the end, this coalition that the Democrats had created absolutely broke down, because they did not hold the promises that they had made to the minorities, to the people who actually had the less amount of power within the Democratic Party. And because of that, all these, I want to say, side members of those coalition, minorities and young people, they ended up moving to the other side and moving towards the Republicans and Donald Trump, hoping that he would actually do really what Joe Biden had promised to do but didn't deliver. So now that we've seen this, we're gonna see a little bit of the reactions that were happening around the internet, and keep in mind also what we were saying here in terms of demographics. When we're gonna see these reactions, we're gonna see some of the reactions that got a lot of views online, and you're gonna see that these demographics, they are going to come out, and you're gonna notice it in the reactions that we're gonna look at here. A tweet. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it shows a little bit the hypocrisy, really, of the Democrats and the left at large. When things don't go their way, they turn very sour very quickly, and the sort of moral superiority that they base themselves in during the campaign, when they lose, they're not gracious at all in defeat, and they completely turn, they do a 180, and they do exactly the opposite. And if you look at this thread, then you'll see it goes for days and days and days, horrible stuff being said, and all that because things didn't turn out their way. But anyway, now we're gonna have a look at this lady here, and a retired political science academic. I don't know what school, what university she was from, but this lady got a little bit of famous before the election, and I think it has the video also, the original video that made her famous, and then there is the answer. So let's listen.
Okay, so we're closing in on almost 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and I've been tracking everything that's been going on across the country today. And my most important encounter was when I went out to get my champagne. I was talking to the guy in the store, of course, asking him, did he vote? And he said he did early voting, and he asked me if I early voted. And he asked me, why I was getting the champagne. And I said, because I'm going to be toasting Madam President tonight. And he just looked at me with kind of like a smirk on his face. And I said, she's going to win this, right? And he says, oh, well, it's very, very close. And I said, no, it's not. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, no, it's not. The women of America are making their voices heard. Reproductive rights is what it all comes down to. And the women are voting in numbers relative to men that are unbelievable. She's won this. And I said to him, she's going to take every one of the swing states plus Iowa. And he said, oh, but the numbers are so close. I said, I'm a political analyst. I'm telling you right now, the numbers are there. She's taking this election. And then I said to him, you realize, and he didn't tell me who he voted for, but of course I knew. And I said, you do realize you wasted your vote, right? And I didn't care. And I walked out with my bottle of champagne and happily walked home. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so here it is. And the guy at the store probably knew. He probably was aware of the Atlas Intel polling, and he didn't buy that. He tried to tell her, she didn't get it. But you get a little bit of the sense of smugness and arrogance that these people have. And very, very interesting that she said, "Oh, Kamala is going to win all the swing states." When the polling showed that she was lagging in every single one of them, and then she mentioned Iowa, and the day before, there was this Iowa poll from the Des Moines Register or something like that. It was an outlier. Every single other poll in Iowa was giving Trump winning, and then this one poll that was saying something crazy like Kamala by 10 or Kamala by 5. And of course, everybody looked at it and say, okay, this one probably it's not accurate. But you can see here, because it was pushed on the mainstream media, of course, to trying to get people to vote. And here, this so-called or self-proclaimed political science expert, analyst, academic, whatever you want to call her, she has no idea what she's talking about. She listened to the mainstream media. They showed her one poll that had Kamala winning in Iowa. She was, that's it. This is the information that I needed to confirm my bias. And it completely, I wonder, where is the champagne? Did she drink it, or is it still cold? Is she waiting for the next election before popping this bottle? I don't know. She made a reaction video. I don't think I have it though, but yeah, let's just move on to the next one. And here is another one. Let's see what she's going to say.
So here's a problem that I have dealing with my MAGA sons. They get very, very offended if I say that I think that they are ignorant to some things because of their support for this rapist and felon. But here's the thing. I have two choices when I try to understand why they would support an abhorrent human that goes against every value I try to instill in them. Here's my two choices. I can believe that you are ignorant, or I can believe that you are evil. ignorant is the kinder choice.
And of course, all of these coming out from TikTok, the insanity factory of TikTok. And here, once again, and when we're talking about the demographics, you will notice the demographics here. How many views? Let's see. Did she get on this one? 1 million views here, and these are reposts. You have to understand, these are reposts from TikTok. So if this one gets 1 million view on a repost on Twitter, the original probably got tens of millions of views on TikTok. But sort of to go back to what she was saying, there's this the moral argument, and what I was saying earlier is that ultimately when it comes to politics, all these moral argumentation, they're all narratives that are pushed by the campaign, but when it comes to the reality of politics, it is always about spending resources and resource allocation. And so, you know, we're going to see several of them here, and they're going to be all in the same demographic. All those that went sort of viral on TikTok, college-educated women over the age of 65. And really, you know, what we were saying earlier is these were the people who were simply benefiting from the spending under the Biden administration. People, you know, making more than $100,000. And, you know, part of the aspect of the campaign of the Democrat was to try to browbeat people into voting for Kamala Harris, saying, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you're a racist, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, you're a terrible person. But in the end, it did not work because people understand that these narratives, these political narratives, they're really not important. It's just BS. And at the end of the day, the breakdown of the coalition of the Democrats came to resource allocation, and really the Democrats creating this coalition with the help of minorities, with the promise to help minorities. But when it came to spending, when it came to allocating the resources, sort of upper class, college educated women, white women making over $100,000 had the power within the Democratic Party and within this coalition to spend and allocate resources to themselves at the expense of the other members of the coalition, which led to the breakdown of the coalition. But will the Democrats be able to make this analysis from what we've seen so far in the media, from what we've seen from the reactions on Twitter? Absolutely not. Most of the Democrats here blaming Latino voters and African American men for refusing to vote for Kamala Harris and choosing instead of the higher moral route, or, you know, in the fantasy, of course, of the left, deciding to simply make the pragmatic choice and vote with their pocketbook. So let's move on here to the next one, to the next clip. Let's see how many views on this one here. Oh, it's not that many, 320. That's probably from a smaller account. But let's listen here to what this woman is saying.
November 7th, and here we are again, and did not think we would be, but here we are. So listen, I have a challenge for people out there. This is my challenge. If you are or know a man of any color, okay, any background, any nationality, any ethnic group, any religion, all of it, any man who voted blue, I'm challenging you to post on this platform so that we can see your faces and we can thank you. And that later we have it on the record of who the safe men are. Okay? That's my challenge to you, is that you wear the blue bracelet, you wear the safety pin, you post your story to this app or wherever, everywhere, put it everywhere. Live it out loud that you tried to do right by the people of this country. The women need to see your faces. We need to know your names. We need to know where you live, because we are in danger. And I'm speaking as a white woman, and I get that. But they'll get to me eventually. They'll get to me eventually. And if you are afraid to identify yourself as someone who voted blue, I want you to really, really think about the luxury that you have, that your skin doesn't indicate what group you belong to, if that's the way you feel. Okay? Because there are lots and lots of people out there who are in grave danger. Okay? It's going to take a little while, but it's coming. Because, see, I believe the orange bag of vomit at his word. I believe it. So if you are a man who voted blue, please tell us so that we know who is safe.
All right, and that's enough. That's enough of it. We're gonna cut it here. But this woman in full-blown psychosis here, and a lot of it, we're gonna see some more, of course, and they get crazier and crazier. This woman wearing a safety pin, other people putting a blue bracelet to try to signal, oh, I voted for Kamala. And, in a lot of those cases, you're like, well, these people are absolutely demented. This is an election, but they are acting as if this was the end of the world. A sensible person, someone who's logical and reasonable, would say, oh, okay, well, we didn't win this time, the election, and perhaps the campaign was not all that great and we could have done better. And, let's regroup and let's rethink. And then there's another election in 2 years. And then there's another presidential election in 4 years. And let's think of what ways to do a better result, get a better result in the next election. That's not at all the reaction. A lot of those people who are, they are having a mental breakdown. And, if you think about the sort of narratives that were pushed by the mainstream media, I think a lot of those people are victims, really, of the mainstream media that has pushed narratives and propaganda that was so outrageous that most people realized, okay, this is just political narratives. This is just stories that the media is putting out there to try to get people to vote. But a lot of people do not register it like that. A lot of people are so obsessed and so involved in the narrative. They believe the mainstream media so much that they actually take it to their word. And, keep in mind that the people who are making these shows, the journalists that you see on TV, they are reading a prompter. It doesn't mean that they actually believe what they are saying. They are doing their job. They are trying to get people to vote for, the interests that they represent. They themselves don't actually believe that. And if you looked at, MSNBC the day after the election, Morning Joe was all smiles. And you'd think, well, why isn't he having a mental breakdown? Because he never believed what he was saying. He never believed that Trump was actually Hitler. It was a ruse. It was a strategy for him to get you to vote for his candidate. But that doesn't mean he actually believed. But a lot of those people that we're going to see, a lot of those reactions, these people actually took it, took the mainstream media to their word, and they actually believe that Donald Trump is Hitler. And we're going to see, as it goes on, more extreme and extreme reactions, people going absolutely insane because they actually believe that now that Donald Trump has won the election, their lives are over, they're going to die, and Hitler is going to create World War III all over the world or something like that. Anyway, let's move on here to the next one, another one with 1 million views here. Let's listen to this person.
Oh boy, I'm not ready for the world. I just came back from the grocery store and I saw a white woman with a Trump bumper sticker on her car, and I told her exactly what I thought of her. I called her a dumb B word. I don't even like that word, but so maybe I should stay home a little while longer because I'm not ready. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing okay. Oh boy, I'm not.
All right, and another one here. Sort of going out of her way to, be aggressive toward other people who she doesn't know, who have done nothing to her on the basis of her politics. And, I wonder, why do these people post this online, and it's all TikTok, the insanity factory. If you have not seen TikTok, I don't know if I encourage you to actually go on TikTok, because you will lose some brain cells if you do. But it is actually worth going on the app. I'm not saying you should use it often or every day, but at least you need to have a look. How insane is this app, and how insane the people on the app are, and how they create this sort of this circle, this vicious circle where they reinforce their own insanity. It's like people are encouraging themselves and others to be more extreme, to be more intense, to be more crazy, simply. And there was a lot of talks during the Trump administration. It also was floated around during the Joe Biden administration. We've seen some countries over the world already banning TikTok, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a new Trump administration, ByteDance, the Chinese owner of TikTok, is forced to sell its stake to U.S. interests. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is some changes on the platform, because at a certain point, you have to wonder and perhaps realize that the algorithm from ByteDance is not meant for information to be freely shared on TikTok, but they're really pushing the most extreme and the most insane behaviors, trying to get people into self-harm, trying to get people to do things that are dangerous. I mean, we'll remember the first trends on TikTok, kids eating Tide Pods, eating detergent to imitate people on TikTok. And things like that, they're not pushed by the algorithm by mistake. They are pushed because someone in the company is trying to push these trends. We remember also the climbing of the crates, where people were stacking plastic crates and then climbing on top of them and then falling down. And these TikTok trends really being pushed out there to try to get views for people trying to become some social media famous and engaging into behavior that is very destructive and dangerous. And for this election, I think the very same was employed by ByteDance and the Chinese to try to sow discord and try to push a certain segment of the population over the edge and try to get some kind of social unrest. Unfortunately for the CCP perhaps, or ByteDance, or whoever is behind TikTok trying to push these trends, the election being such a landslide win for the Republicans, it did not result in that, but we can see the spectacle here of all the insane reactions. Let's move now to the next one. Again, a very similar one. This one, 3.1 million view here on a repost. Same thing. Keep in mind, all those coming from TikTok probably get tens of millions of views on the original app.
Easiest and most effective form of protest you have right now that you can start immediately? Put a mask back on. Stop letting them observe your face and have the side benefit of better health and protecting the rest of us in the world. Put a mask back on. Fuck this government. Easiest and most effective form of protest.
So I have no idea what she's talking about. Why a mask as a form of protest? I'm not sure. It's hard really to understand the logic or the rationale behind a lot of these, and I don't think there is much rational here. Perhaps it is a remnant of the COVID insanity. And she mentions like, oh, it'll keep you safe. Perhaps this election is the new COVID, and once again, like this has no basis on reality. This person, perhaps they're trying to differentiate themselves. So if you're wearing a mask, have a blue band and a safety pin, then you can signal to other people in the street that you voted for Kamala Harris. But overall, this person doesn't look like she's all that stable. I probably wouldn't listen to her advice. Now let's have a look at this one here. Let's see what she's going to say.
Hi, white woman from Wisconsin here. Sorry to scare you. I just want to share something. I can't believe how strange I feel in my community because I thought I knew or could assume where we stood. I had no idea 70% of y'all were feeling that way. So I was on TikTok all day and saw that we're making bracelets. And I thought, okay, I've got beads. I can make some. My daughter's like, I want one. So I was making bracelets last night. And I ran out of string. And I don't even want to be in a store right now because people are walking around like everything's normal. And I'm like, are we in the same universe? And I'm really uncomfortable. I don't want to be around it. So anyways, I went to the craft store and I go to the bead section to buy some string and maybe a few more blue beads. And I see another young woman there buying blue beads. And I just looked at her and I said, are you making bracelets? And she said, yeah. And I said, me too. And she started crying, and so did I. And she's like, I just came from therapy. I'm not okay. And I was like, I just got in a fight with my best friend over Project 2025. I'm also not okay. And she's like, can I hug you? And I said, yeah. So I'm just hugging this stranger in Jo-Ann Fabrics because we're just two white women who just wanted people to know, not me. It wasn't fucking me. And like, I truly pray to God I am being dramatic right now. And this is overkill. But I can't help it. This is so fucked. And I'm also not one of those white women who you had to wonder. I talk about this shit all the fucking time. I've cut people out. There's people I don't talk to anymore. Made it clear last time and even more clear this time. And I do not mince words. So maybe it's overkill, but there are people in my community who are like a target and probably don't feel safe. And whatever I can do to maybe soften that a little bit, I'm going to do it. So anyways, if you're in Wisconsin near Milwaukee, let me know if you want a bracelet. I'll send you one. And just to kind of get out ahead of this before the pick-me Trump supporter girls are in the comments happy that we're sad and overwhelmed and crying, and they have so much satisfaction in that. And you're so scared. Hate to break it to you, honey. You fucked yourself big time. So we voted for you. But good luck. Good luck to any of you with a uterus.
And here, this one, completely crazy, completely insane. And she mentioned she was on TikTok all day. So you see, if you spend all day on TikTok and you're only interacting with people with the same mindset, in the same kind of cultish environment, then of course you're going to reinforce yourself with other people who think the same way. And sort of the circle is going to get more and more extreme. Your bias is going to get more and more extreme because you're only going to be interacting with people who are trying to sort of up the other, to try to get more views, try to be more extreme and appeal more to even the targeted audience. And so everybody is trying to outdo each other. Everybody is trying to do more so that they can get further higher in the algorithm to get more views, and people get more extreme. And so that's really one of the TikTok trends really that I think is really detrimental to society. And you know, when you listen to her talk, you really get the sense of a cult. And when she was talking at some point about cutting people off, where was it? I've cut people out. There's people I don't talk to anymore. This is really cult behavior, you know. And in election, yes, it's important because it's about deciding what the political future of the country is. But in a political system like America, in a bipartisan system where, you know, everything is sort of like towards the middle and there's not really political extremes, you know, cutting people off over politics is really, you don't understand politics at all if you do that. It doesn't matter that much. To be honest, in the end, the government is run in, you know, in sort of the way it is run. As I've said, you know, previously on this channel, you know, this country is running on rails, and it doesn't matter who wins, left or right. The train is still going to move down the rails. Maybe you can control what speed it moves, but you cannot get off the track and go in a totally different direction. This is not how the bipartisan system, the constitutional republic of America functions. But a lot of people, they're not that savvy in politics. They don't really understand how it works. And they really think, you know, because of those narratives that are pushed by the mainstream media, and they only tune in, you know, a couple of weeks before the election, and they don't really follow that, you know, all year long. And so when the rhetoric gets so extreme, they register these final few weeks and this very extreme rhetoric, and they think, oh, this is the reality that I live in. And, you know, she's saying in the end, what is she saying? You fucked yourself big time. You know, not really. It's not that important altogether, but, you know, to reiterate the cultish nature, and, you know, in the mainstream media, they were always saying, oh, how Trump supporters, they're in a cult, the MAGA is a cult, and they're so extreme. And now we're seeing, you know, with the defeat here for the Democrats, that actually a lot of them, they are displaying sort of cultish behavior. And as we go on to the next cases here, we're going to see a lot of them. So let's see here. Let's move to this next one here.
I am experiencing this unfamiliar feeling, and I wondered if anyone else has been feeling this way. So I'm at the dog park, and I feel so mistrustful. Like, I don't know who's on my side and who's on the other side. I mean, I know we're gonna start wearing the blue bracelets, and I think that will help. But like, does anyone else feel that? I just have this fundamental mistrust. Like, I'm just looking at everyone going, are you part of why this happens? Are you a safe person? Like, I can only imagine how the marginalized communities are feeling right now. And I also don't want people to be looking at me thinking, oh, white woman, she definitely voted for him. Like, it's a very unsettling feeling. Is anyone else experiencing that? I am experiencing this.
All right, and so here we have another one, and another white woman sort of lecturing people about marginalized communities, and I think this is not good for the Democratic Party. If you're a white woman, don't pretend that you are the spokesperson for other people, for other communities. You only represent yourself. You don't even represent most Democrats. But somehow, these people have this arrogance to think that, oh, my opinion is actually representative not only of the whole party, not only of the whole population. I represent everyone. No, you don't. Once again, this person saying she's doubtful. She is scared. She doesn't know who's on her side and who's on the other side. And this is very new, I think, in American politics. It used to be there is only one side. There is only America. And whether you're red or blue, you sort of fight during the election. But after the election, everybody comes together. The country comes together, whoever is elected president, and we all sort of unite behind the president. And ever since really the 2016 election, when we've seen a lot of people who were not interested at all into politics coming on the scene, sort of reacting with this knee-jerk reaction promoted by mainstream media, people coming on the scene, and now people who were absolutely not interested in politics all of a sudden becoming sort of warriors of politics. And now it's two sides. Now it's my side or the other side, and there is no more unity. Even though, Kamala Harris pretended that she was the candidate of unity and that Donald Trump was divisive, but in the end, if you really see, the result is absolutely the contrary. These people, after the election, they are not like, oh, okay, maybe I don't like Donald Trump, but I still want the country to succeed. Now it's a totally different tone for politics. Now it's to the bitter end. And if I don't win, then I would rather see the country go down in flame rather than having someone who I oppose politically get any success. Anyway, we're going to move on here to the next one. Let's listen to this one.
So last night, I told my mom and dad that because they voted for someone who wants me dead, that they no longer have the privilege of having their daughter and their granddaughters in their life. And I told them, never contact me again. I'm never calling you. I want nothing to do with you. And take me out of the will. I have a younger brother who is also a MAGA. I said, when you guys pass away, give him the entire house. I don't want to inherit your house. I don't want anything from you. I don't want to hear from you ever again, because I'm no longer safe being in a relationship with you, because I'm queer, I'm autistic, I'm like half disabled. I have Lyme disease and POTS and a bunch of other shit. And I'm bisexual. I have 2 daughters, and my husband's also bisexual. It's like, I'm no longer safe with people like you. You'd be the first ones to turn me into the Schnazis if shit went down here. So I just, to anyone in the comments that's going to say, oh my God, that's so terrible. The left is so hateful. You guys shouldn't be cutting off your family. You know what? I'm not going to fucking go to Thanksgiving dinner with my family and look them in the eye and just play nice anymore. Like, I'm done doing this. I have been gaslit and neglected and verbally abused by my family for being different my entire life, and I've cut off all my aunts and uncles, anyone who voted for Trump, anyone who's a Christian in my family, I know they voted for Trump. So I have like 3 people in between I have 2 people on my mom's side and 1 person on my dad's side left, and they're cousins. Cause yeah, and I have my husband, I have my 2 daughters, and that's all I need. I'm not going to be gaslit, and I'm not going to be gaslit anymore. I'm done living this life. So, good riddance. Bye.
So another one here from TikTok, absolutely insane. And, she begins by saying, my mom and dad want me dead. Like, how insane do you have to be to say something like that? How indoctrinated do you have to be? And, some of these, they're like so extreme. You think, okay, these people, they're pretending. This is not true. Like, it's hard to believe that this is actually true, but actually it's true, and that's how far a lot of these people have been pushed over the edge by this mix of mainstream media and TikTok propaganda, sort of this interaction with a group of people that shares only the same ideas and the same values and the same political leanings without anybody to try to reason with them. They get deeper and deeper into this cultish mentality. And, she mentions that she's cutting her parents from all her family, or even her daughters, their granddaughters will not talk to their grandparents anymore. It's absolutely insane. She's cut off every single person who's a Christian in her family. But one interesting thing that here you will notice is here she says, I have Lyme disease and POTS and a bunch of other stuff. But, it is very common. There is this push toward victimization where there's a very interesting book by Jonathan Haidt called The Cuddling of the American Mind, and he talks a little bit about that, how we are living now in an era where people have realized that to get attention, being a victim is something that actually gets you a lot of attention. And in this era of social media where everybody is trying to gain attention, then being a victim is something that is very... it's very productive, actually, if you're trying to somewhat gain attention on social media. Well, if you're a victim, then people are going to pay attention to you. And we're seeing now this new phenomenon of people sort of inventing themselves as victims to be able to promote themselves online on social media. And this is a trend that's I think it's very problematic. But anyway, let's move on here to this New York Post story to just tell you how far it goes. Here, New York Post saying, Seattle woman kills father with ice axe after arguing over keeping lights off on election day. So here you have a woman in Seattle killing her father on election day over some... absolutely nonsense. But of course, this is one of those weird events. It's not necessarily relevant or something that should be thought as a general thing, but it shows you that on the margin, even people are going absolutely crazy here. People killing each other over this election, people in the same family. And, it really tells about this sort of occultish mentality and the absolute insanity that has been promoted by the mainstream media. I think when we see that the mainstream media now is completely falling apart, the viewership is falling apart. We have about now 30% only of the population that actually trusts the mainstream media. And of course, it's not surprising, but when you still have 30% of people who trust the mainstream media to a certain extent, well, if they trust the mainstream media fully, then it will end up in things like that. Because if you're listening to insane narratives and you don't have enough reason, if you're not reasonable enough to understand that these narratives, they're just that, they're not reality, they're narratives that are pushed by interest groups to get you to vote in a certain way, then maybe it gets crazy like that, right? If you think that really anyone who supports Donald Trump is Hitler, and your father is voting for Hitler, then your father is a Nazi, and they told you have to kill all the Nazis, then things like that end up happening. This is absolutely insane. And I don't know really what is the solution to that, but perhaps the problem will solve itself and the viewership in the mainstream media is going to completely collapse. Now we're seeing there's a lot of talk about MSNBC, now Comcast trying to ditch MSNBC. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Discovery, Warner Bros. Ditching CNN. Massive layoffs already planned for MSNBC and CNN. And, I wouldn't be surprised if these big news corporations, they're just going to dump these cable news garbage, because not only is it not profitable, but on top of that, when you see things like this happening, it's of course going to damage the brand. And if the whole country is moving sort of to the other side politically, then having brands like CNN or MSNBC part of your corporate structure is not going to be good, because it's going to hurt your other brands just because you have these brands that everybody is turning on. Anyway, let's move on now. Let's move to the cabinet positions now that are being appointed by the Trump administration. The few picks or the prediction for picks that we're getting here. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has been appointed now. Pete Hegseth, a veteran. He was a host on Fox News at Fox and Friend. Let's see, the next one here is John Ratcliffe as the CIA director. John Ratcliffe, who I believe was a DNI under the previous Trump administration. Let's see what's next. We have Lee Zeldin here at the EPA. Lee Zeldin, GOP member from New York. Kristi Noem here at Homeland Security. Very interesting pick. And this one is, I believe it has not been confirmed yet, but the rumors floating that Marco Rubio would be the Secretary of State. We will have to see what happens. So here it is. We're going to see now in the next few days what are the other appointments that are going to be happening in the Trump administration. But we're seeing a lot of movement, a lot of people being lined up for roles. It's sort of a battle now for people to try to get job in the next administration. But we will follow all the developments in that regard. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure you watch our upcoming videos when we're gonna dissect all the picks here of the Trump administration for the cabinet positions. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video if you made it all the way up to here, and I will see you all on the next one.
Hit me with that like, and sub to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell. Click that bit, alright. The algo recommends, for she gon' like. The algo knows you well. Hit me with that like, subscribe to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell.